We've recently been covering some movies that are a little too modern for my taste, too complicated. I mean, that last script took me almost a week to write, and that's not because I was lazy while doing it. No way. So today I thought we'd take a look at an oldie but a goodie. A simpler picture from a simpler time when movies didn't have to be good, they just had to be 60 minutes. It's a classic in all the ways it shouldn't be. Bad writing, bad characters, filmed outdoors, and possibly one of the dumbest monsters in movie history. Let's take a disgusted look at the classic Robot Monster.
Weirdflix.
According to IMDb, this movie was shot over the course of 4 days completely outdoors, and boy does it look like it. First off, I don't know if you saw the cover of my DVD, but this thing is advertised not only in color, which is false because a movie this bad could only be in black and white. Second, you may have noticed that it's advertised in 2D. That's because this movie was actually made to be 3D, if you can believe that. That's right. 3D technology has been around since the 50s, and not since 2008 like Disney's Bolt led me to believe.
Does anyone else remember that movie? Just me? Moving on.
It's nice to get back to actual B-movies, stuff that looked like it'd be second billed at a drive-thru. Of course, I'm not even sure this is good enough for the drive-thru. Enough cheap shots, let's dive in and see what Robot Monster has to offer. Our story begins with some little kid walking out of the woods. Get used to long shots of people walking, it takes up about 75% of the runtime. He walks to his little sister and we get to hear some lovely little kid talk. Let's listen.
Am I dead? You're disintegrated. Good, does that mean we can play house now? You promised.
Did you hear that part about playing house? This little girl, Carla, has about, 7 or 8 lines in this whole movie. And all except one is about playing house.
Literally, during the apocalypse, she talks about going over to her friend's house.
Talk about a one-note character. Our boy, named Johnny, runs off because playing house is for girls, am I right, fellas? I'll level with you, this is another movie where it's really hard to remember the characters' names, but for you, loving audience, I will look it up on IMDb. Johnny runs into a nearby cave where 2 archaeologists or something like that are working. Their names are Roy, the young guy, and the professor.
Because apparently now we're on Gilligan's Island.
They talk to Johnny about the poorly drawn cave paintings on the wall and why he looks like a spaceman. Really unimportant stuff. His family, which consists of Mother and Alice, take a guess which is which, come to find him so they can go back to their picnic. Alice and Roy, because they're near the same age, are going to be love interests, since this is the 50s. They go back to their picnic where they take a nap, I guess? Johnny, little annoyance that he is, runs off where he trips in front of a cave and dies. The end. Nah, I'm kidding. Instead, we get
footage of a dinosaur. What? Did I put in the right movie?
And just as soon as it starts, it ends.
No, go back. I want to watch the real-life animals fight.
Ah well, at least Johnny is up. And someone threw out some trash in front of the cave. Look at that junk. And lightning from inside the cave? Weird. Johnny runs off and... You've gotta be kidding me. Really? That's it. That's the Robot Monster. Believe it or not, this is not the first time I've seen this creature. It has a cameo in the movie Looney Tunes Back in Action, and boy does he look better there.
It looks illegal.
There's no escape. Oh man, that's a great movie. I should be reviewing that.
Anyway, Robot Monster is using a bubble machine and a ham radio to contact his home planet through a mirror. Okay, sure. And there's another one? Come on, movie, don't you realize this guy is as scary as a blind puppy? I mean, I look more threatening when I wake up in the morning. The long and the short of it is that Gorilla Boy here is called Roman, and he's reporting his progress to the Great One. Apparently, this guy has wiped out every human on Earth except for 8, and if that guy could do it, we deserved it. This is apparently unacceptable, because they're robots and strive for perfection. Real quick, I'd like to talk about Roman. He's clearly a guy with a diving helmet wearing a gorilla suit. In the movie though, he's talked about like he's a robot, but he's an alien as well, and he has free will unlike a Terminator or something. So he's more a confused mess than a robot monster. That would be a better name for this movie. Confused Mess. Anyway, Johnny decides he needs to run home to the trenches of World War I guess.
Wait, why is the professor there?
And how did everybody die while Johnny was taking a nap? What's going on here? It's probably a script oversight. Johnny tells his family that Roman is nearby, which worries them, because he'll kill them if he finds them. However, due to some science mumbo-jumbo, he can't. I don't understand why. I don't even understand what it is. To summarize this dialogue, everyone is dead, including Roy. Hope seems lost.
Also, there's a moon base, but you can bet we won't be seeing it.
That comes into play later, so remember that. Then, Roman calls them on his two-way mirror to promise them swift death if they surrender, showing them the devastation that one gorilla robot was capable of causing. Truly, this is Harambe's revenge. They talk about how much they hate life right now.
Which, I mean, yeah.
Cut back to the cave.
Have you figured out that there's only 2 locations in this movie?
And we see that guy from the beginning. Roy's looking awfully buff for a dead man. He hides behind a rock, and the helmeted horror goes to set up his old TV antenna to see if he can get any reception. He talks to his superior, who gives him 1 Earth rotation to kill the last 8 people. Shouldn't be too hard. I'd like to take this opportunity to speak on how stilted their dialogue is. Listen to them talk.
For the first time in my life, I am not sure.
You sound like a human, not a Roman. Can you not verify a fact?
I meshed my LPI with the view screen auditor and picked up a count of 5.
Error. Error.
I get they're aliens and robots, but they talk so unnaturally. Who wrote their dialogue? Me? Roy remains undetected, probably because Roman can't see out of that helmet. I've seen smaller fish bowls. Roy runs off, where he receives a hero's welcome, I guess. He talks about how 2 other people who aren't important have gotten a rocket working and are going to attempt to travel to the moon to let the military garrison there know what's going on. Sure. Also, Roy tells them that because they were vaccinated, they're death ray immune. You know what? Let's go with it. In order to stop the moon from blowing up their rocket, they have to rewire their TV so they can broadcast and let them know what's going on. And now we get to watch a montage of circuitry repair with my favorite thing, witty banter. Let's listen.
You're either too beautiful to be so smart or too smart to be so beautiful.
I guess we do get along all right at that. But let's work together now. We can play later.
Boy, those 50 writers sure knew how people talk. To make a long story short, it didn't work, and Roman interrupts them by showing how cool he is by blowing up their friend's rocket mid-flight. And look at those special effects.
Truly stunning.
Now here's where it gets weird. While talking to the family, Roman becomes smitten with Alice and wants to meet her for some robot lovin'. Alice wants to go as an attempt to negotiate with the robot who can suddenly feel love, but the men decide they know better and tie her up like the damsel in distress that she is. How can Roman suddenly feel love? I don't know. If you watch King Kong and Blade Runner simultaneously, you'll probably figure it out. Johnny sneaks out instead and we get to watch my favorite part of the movie. Roman walking. Look at him waddle. That guy in the suit is not getting paid enough for this.
Imagine how hot that is. How many actors do you think died in that suit? 3? It's probably 3.
Johnny and Roman meet, and Johnny starts laying the smack talk.
You look like a pooped out pinwheel.
Ooh, a pooped out pinwheel.
In the 50s? That's the equivalent of calling someone a... today.
However, since he's an idiot, Johnny reveals that they're up to date on their death ray vaccinations, so Roman goes to correct this error. That means we get to watch him walk more. I've never seen an actual robot move, but they can probably do better than this. He moves like a Five Nights at Freddy's reject. Alice and Roy went off to look for Johnny, and decided to partake in some 50s sanctioned hanky-panky. Have I mentioned this movie is from the 50s? They come back home, and everyone figured out what they did. So what? It's the apocalypse. They're gonna get married or something?
Go.
Well, I stand corrected, I guess. Meanwhile, Roman gets yelled at by his boss for daring to think about anything other than taking over the planet, because again, he's like a Terminator, but with free will. Utterly useless, that's what he is. He decides to go take matters into his own hands, and wanders to go kill the last family on Earth. Meanwhile, Roy and Alice go out to consummate their marriage.
Because, I imagine it would be uncomfortable if they tried to stay home.
Carla, the little girl, runs out to give them a gift, and you forgot what her name was until right now, didn't you? However, on the way back, she catches an unfortunate case of these hands, and winds up dead. Roman then goes out to find Alice to see if he can make that old saying come true.
Once you go Roman, you'll wish you never ran.
Let's see how that goes. After fighting off Roy and literally sweeping Alice off her feet, he slowly marches back into his cave. Meanwhile, we see Carla's grave.
this movie got much darker than I anticipated.
Back at the cave, Roman yells at his boss because despite the fact that he's killed almost 3 billion people,
He just wants to be human and feel love.
he tries to paw at Alice,
Get it? Because he's got gorilla paws.
but is distracted by Johnny, who he somehow quickly tracks down and strangles. Yeah, right, we've seen this guy walk. But he suffers cardiac arrest shortly after because his boss electrocuted him from across the galaxy. Then everyone else dies from earthquakes and dinosaurs as that other Roman narrates. Listen.
Cyclotonic vibrations will smash the planet Earth out of the universe.
Fun fact, that dinosaur footage is from another movie, and those 2 lizards are actual real animals fighting. That's a crocodile that's trying to kill something. Cool, right? We cut back to a passed out Johnny with a nasty bump on his head. And what? It's all a dream? Who could have seen that coming after we, saw him get knocked out at the beginning? The family walks off to continue their picnic, but what's that walking out of the cave? Why, who else but Roman? And here we see the 3D tech as it looks like he's walking right out of the screen.
Look out, world. Here comes Robot Monster. All in all, this movie's fine. I can see why it's considered a classic, as the lack of emotion from the actors, the sheer stupidity of Roman, and some of the cringeworthy dialogue and acting gives people a lot of ammunition against this movie. And yet, deep down, buried in there, there's some heart. Like the people who made this thought they were making something important. Like there was a moral or something. Not that I know what that moral is. It was lost on me after I watched Roman hike up a hill for the 15th time. Be sure to come back next week when we'll be starting a very special series. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, Weirdflix watches what no one else will.